So artificial intelligence we talked a little bit about. So that's the background. This is what I did. We worked with the government and the regulators to create a process where we tried to catch the bad guys. And more recently, after 9/11, it was focused on terrorists as well. Because terrorists look like normal people, just like everybody else, when they flow through the payment system. And actually, terrorist financing is done usually with legitimate dollars and not with gains of illegal, or funds from illegal gains. So that was even harder to identify them. So artificial intelligence, and we actually wrote a white paper at PayPal about this, because we said the way we're doing it with all this labor-intensive work where people actually have to look up people's names and review these transactions just doesn't make a lot of sense. So at PayPal they had a very, and most banks do as well, a very sophisticated fraud and risk system. So there's certain rules and parameters that will alert, and then the case goes into a first level of review, and then the agent makes a determination, is this normal or pattern behavior? And what we did there is we trained the system through what's called the artificial intelligence and machine learning to automatically accept or decline those transactions for review. And then the ones that had to go for review still had to go through manual review. But it's a very labor-intensive process. As I said, we filed 80,000 of these reports a year. So it's a lot of work, and we had about 4,000 or 5,000 people doing it. Again, a big company, but still a lot of money, a lot of expense, and a lot of resources. So our position at PayPal was, give us an opportunity to learn how to do it a different way. And so at that point, the Treasury Department got very interested, because we took it to the European regulators, the US regulators, and then the Asian regulators. Singapore was very interested, Canada was very interested, and the European regulators were interested. But the US were very, very interested, so they asked me to join a committee. It was called the BSA Advisory Group, to help start funneling this kind of information to start to work together with institutions to solve this problem. They still haven't solved it, so again, another reason why I think I want to go to Washington. The government moves so slow, and it's so, the first meeting I remember, I said, well, we need to do this, this, and this, and they're like, whoa, 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 Gene, you're going way, way too fast for us. So it took us a year to do these 3 things that I wanted to do in the first day, but that's sort of how government works. So the concept is, allow the machines and machine learning to do it, and let it be done automatically, but then you have to give, there's got to be a give and take. But the regulators generally don't want to do that give and take. Singapore, I will say, is taking the lead on that, and we worked with them for 2 years to come up with a compromise in the law to allow us to do that. So that's really artificial intelligence and money laundering. So it's a field that's growing, exploding, I would say. So as young college students who might be looking into a career, I think this is a great opportunity for you to think about something to do like that. Because it doesn't have to be related to banking or even money laundering, but the whole notion of using machines to do the work that people do is really the concept of artificial intelligence, but it's also a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper, and probably a lot more effective. So the future of money. This is probably when it gets a little more interesting, I think, or at least I hope. So when we started, what was the first kind of money that we had in the world? But before that, barter and exchange, exactly. So people use different things of value to exchange money, or exchange for money. And then they went to coins and currency. And then in the banking system, when it started, there were checks, and then the whole banking system process. And then from there were credit cards and debit cards. They actually started around in the early, well, actually the first credit card, the Diners Club, was created in the 50s, but the real credit card boom started in the 70s. And as you know, in Delaware, we had another credit card boom in the 80s and 90s, which brought credit card banks to Delaware, which kept me gainfully employed for a couple decades as well. But it was a payment system of money. And then we moved from there to computers, right? Because you could make payments through the computer system, and then smartphones. And so I actually got the chance to go up on the Hill and talk to legislators about their concerns that they had about using smartphones to move money. And I did thoroughly convince them, because I think there was a lot of hand-wringing at the time. Oh, the criminals are going to use this to launder money. Well, actually, the smartphone is a safer way from the financial institution's perspective to track and record the movement of funds. It's actually even safer than using a check or some other means, because you avoid the layering. The work that we did at PayPal, the smartphone, and did a lot of analytics, you can actually geolocate the phone in response in a millisecond, identify who's using it, is it from the same phone? So you know when you log onto your computer and it's a different computer, or you're logging on from a different IP address, you'll sometimes get a notice from the bank, can you verify this machine? The reason why they do that is their systems pick that up. So at PayPal, we actually had every transaction you've ever done, and the system could automatically determine whether you've gone from that same IP address or use that same machine. And with the case of the mobile phone, the reason why it's safer is that you can actually ping the app, and it geolocates you. And usually most transactions are done within 5-mile radius of your home, which your address is already built into the system. It's pretty phenomenal, the amount of data we have and collect, not just at PayPal, but throughout the industry. So as you think about that, and if anybody wants to be the next Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, or any one of the tech companies, these are things you need to think about in the future. What's the real future of money? What's the real future of payments? And it's moving at record speeds. So after the mobile device and the computers, we started hearing these things about virtual currencies, right? And this started probably back in the, originally the first virtual currencies probably in the year 2000. So those were like Facebook credits or Apple payment credits. And that's a closed loop system where you actually earn credits. Or the one, and I never could understand this because I'm not a gamer, but World of Warcraft, you actually, the gamers, you can, if you win, you get to buy swords and bombs with virtual currency. I just don't understand any of that, I'm sorry. But for those people who do, actually my staff came to me and said, we have about 200 of these kind of merchants on our website. I said, you're kidding me. There's that many, we do hundreds of thousands of transactions a day. And I'm like, I can't wrap my head around it because it's not something that I ever was interested in, but I'm sure obviously there are a lot of people that are. But from virtual currencies, which is a closed loop system, they went to these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And cryptocurrencies are really a currency not backed by any government, by a fiat currency, but created out of, in the case of Bitcoin, by mining, which is confirming a transaction on the blockchain, which is a recordation of that payment. And the blockchain is something else that you don't hear a lot about. You hear a lot about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but the blockchain is something that's also another opportunity if you're interested in learning about for the future, because the blockchain's feasibility, which is it's a permanent record, can be used for hospital records, it can be used for real estate records, it can be used for any type of recordation of a process, and it's permanent and it's verified by a third-party source. So it's more accurate and more effective in terms of doing recordation. It's cheaper, it's pennies on the dollar compared to some of the older processes of recording these things. You need less people to do it. It's done almost instantaneously. So that's a whole other area, I think, a concept of an area that you might want to consider being interested, if you're interested in that.